Hey guys, this is Mike.
And Joe.
From Deepwood Force of Will.
We got a special video today.
Yep, turns out we're not just memes, we're also dreams being realized.
I guess so. Whatever that means.
Because our buddy Joe over here got second place at GP Providence. Almost forgot where we were.
It was 5th place if you go for after top 8, but I was 2nd place in Swiss.
Yep. So with that all being said, and because everybody who went above him was already had an invite?
Yes. It was Nick, Alex, Ryan Miles, and John Ball. Yes. John Ball got an invite, and I was the 5th person.
So you also got your invite there. So Joe was able to go to Japan for Worlds.
I had the opportunity to. We're still figuring that out.
Logistics and whatnot.
Yep. This is also the prizes that we got from the event that I was hoping you guys wanted to see. Here's the gold panda. Probably gonna sell it. We'll see about that. Anyway.
And of course, you got Severing Wins for a Wanderer event.
Yeah, that's a meme. Anyway, first we're gonna go into the main deck. We can show you all the deck choices.
With the ruler.
We can go with the ruler first, but I'm gonna show you I'm gonna tell you about the deck first, and then we'll go into matchups and do a small tournament report at the end. I joined the dark side. I played Speaker of Eternal Night at the Wanderer event. After a lot of testing, we spent about 2.5 weeks doing testing, just Mike and I. And Scott and Jacob, who were also in our group, all helped me test. Mike was very helpful during all that testing period because, as you all know, he was commentating for the event and not playing. So basically I just told him, hey, play this deck for me so I can test, and he was willing to do it because he didn't have a specific deck that he needed to learn before the event.
That's going to be next time when I try to get my invite.
I mean, he wasn't the best for testing because he wasn't really too in-depth, trying to figure out how they play to a T, but at least I could play against it and try and figure out what their outs are for certain situations, and that helped for a bit. Sherry's very interesting in Wanderer, as opposed to just being a flowchart that in New Frontiers that just goes story, 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 huge swing turn with judgment. Sherry's a little bit more thinky. She has a bit more of a control game. She uses the stories a bit more, and a lot of times you have to be pretty critical with your cancels in order to maintain your advantage over the opponent. The mirrors were they were terrible, but I don't know how to say it in a nice way, but there's a lot of thinking going on. There's a lot of moving parts on both players and trying to figure out what direction they're trying to take. And not everyone was playing dolls at the event, so if I had known that before the event, I would have just completely scratched out the ability of them to do judgment, which kind of makes Sherry kind of terrible, which is why I think this deck did better than most others. Anyway, let's go into the deck profile, as I said. For the main deck, the best card in the whole deck, which is what makes Sherry really powerful, is Gretel. Getting extra stone ahead, even against Split to Heaven and Earth, which was from the other big deck in the format, which is Keurig. It doesn't matter. You play stones that don't actually get hit by Split Heaven and Earth anyway. So ramping up is hella good, and then once you get all of your stones, you're way ahead in terms of cancels and all that other fun stuff, and they'll probably lose if they do not have good answers to Gretel. Laurite's the best answer to this card, otherwise you can Otherworld Dreams it, but just saying, if you weren't playing Gretel in a Sherry deck in Wanderer, you probably should be. Next up, I was playing a doll package. I thought that the Judgment of Sherry was way too important to pass up on, so I played 4 Evas, and then on top of that, I played 3 Patrolling Guard dolls. Hindsight, I probably would have cut off the 3rd one. It's a very bad card to draw.
And it's not full art.
And if it's not full art, even though we prettied out the deck for fun on the 2nd day. I also played a cleaning doll because I didn't want to lose to additions. Mike decided to make a meme that was Scarlet regalia that made 4 shackles of ice, and I got in my head that, someone might be trying to kill people with shackles of ice with some kind of deck. It might as well just mean the one cleaning doll so it isn't just a wash in game 1. And if they were playing any type of regalia or Class G's tank, it had some uses. Another doll I played was the one Story Speaker Eve. It was the last of my dolls. Being able to do Sherry's Judgment and spin 2 things is pretty powerful, if I had to say so. And that type of swing power, especially with the Angel package that a lot of people were taking from Europe. Being able to do Judgment with Sherry and spin back both the Lucifer and the Celestial Wing Seraph was very, very, very powerful. So that's the explanation for those. Next up, we get the other meat and potatoes of the deck, which is the Spinning Myths package. Spinning Myths is an interesting addition to the deck. It gives the deck like this high roll potential that helps it just blow out other decks when they don't answer the Spinning Myths on turn 3. Also, when you ramp with Gretel, you energize into the ramp if they tapped out turn 1 and don't have a way to Laurite you, or if you went second turn 2 Gretel, and then you do turn 3 Spinning Myths, try and get the Torrent, and then still have the 1 will left over for the cancel before it resolves, is very strong. For Spinning Myths, Izanagi is the go-to. He's the one that directly impacts board and also becomes a 2k beater in the most ideal situation, and that is game winning. Especially against Keurig if they are trying to like beat you down with like a Cthulhu and a Sylvia over a couple turns. Taking those two off the board and then throwing it under a 17-17 is just backbreaking and ends the game. In addition to this was a last minute change. I added in 2 Friggs that were in my sideboard and put them in the main board to help with the control matchup. Also, it was actually pretty good against Keurig because in the aggressive matchups, I was actually throwing away cancels pretty early, and getting back any type of cancel with Spinning Myths into Frigg is great. It wins games. Hindsight, I don't think I would play Spinning Myths again if I did this format. I got the results I wanted to, so I can't really give a full reason, but I think the Myth package was a little bit too high rolly. You can play a lot more consistent and calm of a game, or maybe I would have went for a more dedicated Myth look, like try and play like approaching the truth in the main and actually aim to try and get Spinning Myths very consistently in the early turns, because I think Sherry's still pretty good at that. Next up, we have a cancel package. Laurite's the Resonator cancel and does broken things at broken times and wins games. The best way for Keurig to answer an Izanagi that has a bunch of things under him is to Judgment. And if they go Judgment, tap, get 10 counters on the stack, burn, and then try to go back up to 15, you Laurite going back up to 15, the game's over. Because they tapped themselves and now they have nothing. Laurite wasn't too strong, but there were some cool situations where he was good. Being able to push through the last bit of damage on Sherry because you can cancel her ability to look at her extra deck and then try and pull something out of it. So you can stop a Scarlet's Agony if they're trying to loop you on that, or you can stop them from pulling out Evil Elemental Uprising in response to you trying to Judgment. That one didn't come up too often, but just the implication that Laurite's there and there's a bunch of them means a lot against your opponent. More cancels, the 4 Faerur spell. This card's crazy. I don't know how this card's going to survive in Wanderer or New Frontiers in general, but 1 green will to cancel any other cancel is very, 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 very strong. The only comment I would make about Faerur spell is that it's not as strong in Wanderer as it is in New Frontiers. A lot of the like endgame cards, like your Spinning Myths or your Split Heaven and Earths, aren't quick cast, so it's not as all-encompassing as it is in New Frontiers. So it's got a little bit of a different application. It's more focused on hitting cancels, and I guess maybe Heaven Sundering Dragon Palm or Play Dead. Next is probably the strongest card in the whole Wanderer format, which no one was questioning at all. Otherworld Dreams is insane. 1 will cancels are not fair, but there is the opportunity for your opponent to completely sack you if they have the card that they were planning to play anyway with Otherworld Dreams, so then it just becomes a crappy discard card. It was played pretty well. Honestly, I think I should have been playing 4 of it and maybe 3 of the Faerur spell. I think I had some build a while ago where I was doing that, but I was expecting a lot more Sherrys at the event. And there was about equal Sherry, equal Keurig. Next up is 2 Seal of Wind and Light. All-encompassing cancels are great, and 2 ones that don't have any type of other restriction on them are even better. If somehow I get a moon, I have no way to get moons, but it's there. It can make it unchaseable, but who cares? The deck is green-white, so, and has place 4 green-white stones, so it's pretty good for that. Next up is 2 rune stories. A lot of people were running 3. I was running 2 because I thought I would see them enough, which I did. I think you only really need to reset it once, and there's a lot, when you're playing only 2 rune stories as opposed to 3, there's a lot more baiting that goes on and trying to figure out the opportunity where you can reset your extra deck. It's a really good card, but mostly only used for that. Sometimes I would use it for the banish mode, but most of the time, and sometimes I would use it for the cancel mode, but mostly it was just flip down 2 stories. Next up is the most powerful AoE spell in the game, Final Battle. The deck does play black, and getting to 1 black is not a problem, and then the rest is pay life, or this deck gets to a ton of will because of the Torrented Spinning Myths and the Gretels, so you might actually be able to cut down on the life cost and just burn them down, which is a pretty good option, especially when there's aggro decks in the meta right now. Very strong card. 2 is enough, maybe 1. Obviously, I already spoke about Spinning Myths. Card's crazy, especially if you get the Torrent off. Sherry has the ability to play things out of her extra deck, which counts towards the Torrent requirement. And you could play like Approaching the Truth early, try and fish for your Izanagi or your Frigg in the early game. If you get it good, Spinning Myths, go for it, get the Torrent, and blow them out of the game. Next up is, and the last card in the deck is 2 True Blades. Wasn't really sure what I was planning to hit with this, but True Blades just such a strong card and such an oppressive card against the right deck that might as well just throw it in. It wind up being somewhat weak against Keurig because they wind up sacking their eggs with priority to Cthulhu in the early game, so it is what it is. Wasn't the best situation for it, and it got sided out a lot. For the extra deck, because that goes below it in the deck profile, might as well put it in that order. These are my 5. Not many to be surprising. The only one that people might have a question about is this one. Why I was maining Evil Elemental Uprising as opposed to Black Tears. I was not expecting to face many Faerurs, and I thought that my Faerur matchup was going to be pretty much in my favor, regardless of having Black Tears or not. And I guess it wound up being so, because the only Faerur that I wound up playing, I was able to beat 2-1. But game 1 I did lose, and I kind of like surprised them with the idea of me having Black Tears, so I guess there's always that. Otherwise, everything else is standard. There's no way you're not playing these 4. Next up is the Stone deck. We have 4 of the beautiful Gusting Skies promo. I'm very happy that I got these at the event. They are gorgeous, and I am happy to have them, and I'm sure Mike is happy to see them too.
Wish I had gotten them.
Don't worry, you got a Blasting Waves?
Yeah, it was a good time.
Next up is the 4 Black Silences. Green-black is a very good combo. That's all I have to say. Last card is the interesting pick, which is Spirit Stone. Spirit Stone limits your weakness to Split Heaven and Earth because you can banish it and draw a card. Also, when you ramp up really high and are out of cards, you don't need 10 will if you have no cards. But having 8 will with 2 cards is much, much better. So that's kind of the ideology behind Spirit Stone. Also being able to fish for cancels, tap it, look for a specific cancel if something is like, oh no, this is going to blow me out if I don't have it. That type of like kind of sacky option that Spirit Stone gives you is pretty strong. I definitely approve of 2. I could have went to 3-1, but I was playing a lot of white in the deck, so I wouldn't cut down on that. Or the Black Silences. I don't see it working out. Finally is the side deck. I was playing a Laurite. This is the 4th Laurite. In certain matchups, it's very, very important. Other matchups, it doesn't matter as much. But I figured Laurite was just too strong of a card to not include. It came in and came out of decks in certain matchups. It was going in a lot versus Keurig because sometimes I don't have... Because there's specific cards in my deck that just aren't that great against Keurig in the main. That's about it. You can't really say much about Laurite besides the fact that he's really strong. I added in 2 additional cleaning dolls, so that weren't really that great. But again, I was expecting someone to bring Shackles Vice, and I just didn't want to lose to someone trying to cheese me. So cleaning dolls are here. Thanks, Mike.
You got it. Important knows that it cleans Regalia.
Yes, it does clean Regalia, but Regalia aren't as important in this meta when the only good Regalia is what? Apollo, yeah. That's like the best Regalia in the game.
Hydromonica, I guess.
Hydromonica you can't really clear though because it can
Class
sack.
G's tank.
The one that wound up hitting the most was Class G's tank somehow. Did not expect it, but I had the answer to it. I guess that's just something that I got away with. I had 3 last days of a Powerless Dragonoid in the side. That's very common for the Sherry Keurig meta because the Faerur spells that are in the main aren't as strong as last days, because this hits every single thing in the red deck that Faerur spell would and more. So it's a better card. Nothing much else to say. And clear counters, why not? For more removal, I have 3 Miscalculation. This is the card that I regret not maining. Surprisingly, this card is just stupid strong against both Sherry and Keurig. You'll actually see that Ryan Miles wound up playing it in his first place build, and he was maining 4 of them, and I completely agree with that. After playing the event, I was siding this in against both Control Sherry's and Keurigs. How was I supposed to know that that was supposed to be the card to bring? I don't know, but now I know. Good card. I brought 2 Separation of Fates in case there was any IUs or any Scarlets. They did come into the deck sometimes, and also I guess there could have been some type of deck that might have benefited from getting their abilities removed, and Separation of Fates is just a good, solid, all-around card, because you can also just use it to cycle, so it's never really a dead card in hand. 2 Seal of Wind and Light, cancel things, stronger cancel, harder cancel against control variants, so good card. I already talked about it in the main. 1 Black Moonbeam. I don't know why I even bothered siding this thing. It didn't matter. I did side in against Keurigs, but they were kind of... It didn't matter. A lot of times you want Keurig to stay on his J-Ruler side anyway, because if he's on his J-Ruler side without any strength counters on him, the deck kind of falls apart. There's no combo potential, and there's no way for him to regain strength counters unless he hits like Dragon Ore by tapping for stone, which is... They're losing anyway if they're in that situation. And the last card is the Puppet's Last Days. I put this in as basically saying, if I'm in a Sherry Mirror, I definitely don't want Last Days of Powerless Dragonoid in there. The card's useless in my extra deck. Might as well play Puppet's Last Days. I'm playing a Puppet package, and using my Puppet as instant removal is sometimes a guaranteed lethal option. And I heard getting kills in timed rounds is pretty good. So wins are wins. Puppet's Last Days was pretty good at certain times. So that's it for the deck. I guess we can go into the profile now. Is there anything I should bring out? Do you want to turn the camera up? Okay.
Let's show our beautiful winner.
So I'm going to have my book in front of me. It's going to help me remember all my matchups and the notes that I took down for them. So my first matchup was against a Scarlet. The Scarlet player was he someone new to the game? I can't remember. I've seen him around a bit, but...
He'd been around in the game for a little while.
Yeah.
He builds fun decks.
Yeah, he likes to build fun decks, and I've seen him around quite a bit at our locals. He goes to Fire and Dice sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what happened to him game 1, I see that he's playing Scarlet, and I'm like, wow. The deck that Mike kept joking with me about actually showed up in my matchups. But this guy decided that he wasn't going to be playing Shackles of Ice, which I guess is reasonable. Not everyone wants to run a blue card in their red-black ruler. It might not be the first thing that comes to mind, or he might just be saying, like, oh, maybe there won't be Sherry's here. But whatever. This guy got utterly destroyed game 1 because I did Spinning Myths into Spinning Myths, and his deck wasn't running cancel, so that's pretty much the whole game. Game 2, he... Again, wasn't running Shackles. He got me down pretty low, but overall the deck just wound up coming out because Sherry's Judgment is very powerful and is a good swing move. and with I was able to clear off Apollo. And once you get rid of Apollo, I have enough blockers to stop Scarlet from hitting my face. Game 2, I was playing against Driz. Do you know his full name?
Driz Fuskin.
Driz Fuskin.
Fuskin. I don't know the pronunciation.
Yeah.
He's wearing a cat suit.
Yeah, he was the guy wearing the cat suit and announced that he was wearing cat suit at the event. It was very funny to sit down at my table and I was like, is that the Driz that I think it is? And then a guy in a cat suit walks by and sits down across from me, and that was pretty funny. He was playing Sherry. I was still a little bit unfamiliar with how Wanderer Sherry's going to play in this matchup. I make a mistake game 1. There was an opportunity for me to cancel a Dreams of Juliet, targeting his Celestial Wing Seraph. I knew that he was out of angel targets in his deck for Celestial Wing Seraph, but I forgot that if I was targeting with something to try and remove the Celestial Wing Seraph, and I forgot that if I would have canceled that Dreams of Juliet, that I would have been able to kill the Seraph and stop lethal damage on board. But I let it through, and then I was like, oh, duh, that's what's going to happen. It wasn't anything else. So I lost that game, and then I had to quickly go into game 2 and try and win, and I wound up winning it, so the match turns out into a draw. Going into game 3, I think I would have gotten away with it. I think my side was a little bit stronger than his, but it still was up in the air. We didn't really get to play any of game 3 because we were already in time, but at least it was a draw and not a loss when you make mistakes like that. Round 3 was against Kirik. I was versing Kyron Lucas, the madman. We had a fun laugh about the fact that Team Deepwood brought purple Kool-Aid to the event.
He asked for it. I made sure to have it at the stream desk.
And we delivered for him, and he was very happy that he was playing against someone from the team that brought that. Kieran didn't seem like he was too familiar with the deck, and he had a kind of a bit of struggle figuring out the combos and stuff like that. I think it was probably like his 3rd or 4th time playing the deck, he told me.
Yeah.
By game 2, he got a little bit more familiar with it. He was starting to get his searches in and stuff like that, but my deck, I knew what my deck was doing, and I knew how to like deal with Kirik, so without like someone that truly knew what they were doing, I kind of got through them pretty quick. So he got 2-0'd. It wasn't too much of an issue. At that point, it was 2-0-1, going on to round 4, which was a Faerur. Do you remember the guy's name? He was the bearded Faerur player.
Bearded Faerur player?
Yeah, and he went to Worlds.
Bevan.
Yeah, it was Bevan. So, Bevan playing Faerur. I saw the Faerur, and I was like, oh god, I forgot my black tears. So all of game 1, he's kind of like worried about black tears, but after he gets about 7 elves on board, he's like, oh, you're running evil elemental uprising and not black tears. And I'm like, yep. He winds up playing out a silver player, the elf that gives everything +4/+4, and he's got 6/6 elves, and they're all swinging in. He's got 7 of them, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, how do I deal with this? And I'm like, all right, let's just go to game 2. I get a spinning mitts off. He falls behind, and he's like, all right, let's go to game 3. There might be a chance I win this game, but if it goes through time, I'd rather not draw. I was like, that's fair. I also have him on a 3-turn kill timer because I did Sherry's Judgment. Game 3, we got to about 6 turns in, and he just had no board. He goes for playing an elf, and then Judgment gets out the Faerur. I clear the Faerur very quickly, and then the next turn he winds up tapping down a bit too much of his board to get that Faerur back on and draw a card, and then he ran out of, and then I had the Puppet's Last Days of my side deck to kill it off, so I was able to swing for lethal at that point, and he was like, oh man, I misplayed, but hey, that's what happens. It was a really cool deck. I want to actually play around with that Faerur deck more, especially if Sherry winds up eating nerfs like I think she will be. Next up was another Sherry mirror. This was the stealth one. Game 1 was long and it was slow, and basically I just got grinded out of cards. I got him down to 4, and then I was just dead on cards, and he was drawing a bunch of cards with space-time anomalies and stuff like that. He was way ahead. I was trying to find a way to squeeze out 4 damage, but unfortunately I don't run something like Ginny, which would have probably sealed the game if it didn't get canceled. So I was like, it might take like 4 or 5 turns for me to actually die from this, so might as well just scoop now and just get on to game 2, because in game 2, I wind up winning somewhat quickly. I wound up winning with 4 minutes before the round's over. I'd love to tell you all about how the game went, but it's just long and annoying because it's a lot of just passing turn back and forth because I don't want to play into stealth and he doesn't want to commit to the board without getting value out of the stealth resonators. Game 3, I almost killed him. I think he dead drew. He also told me that he punted game 2, so I don't know what kind of mistakes he made, but there was some Frigg loops going on that were somewhat important. And by the time that he tried to catch up, I was way up on cards. I had like 7 in hand to his 3, which I don't think that deck can come back from. And I was making sure to cancel his Ruined Stories to make sure they can get those loops off. Next up is against Gerardo. This was the top 8 player. He got 8th place with Kirik. He was playing First Lie, which was scary to me because I've never played with First Lie in my life. And I was like, how the heck do I play around this card? Is there like some type of theory to playing around with this card? Basically, I was just like, I'm not going to call something that's going to put me in lethal and then just let it go. The draw 3 is pretty cool in Kirik, but also paying 2 will for it doesn't help too much, and it can be canceled. I don't know if it was the way to go, but I could see why it could win him a couple games. Game 1, I get a Spinning Mitts into Izanagi off, he gets destroyed, and he's like, what do I do? Game 2... Oh, game 1 was actually funny because it was like I energized into it, and he was like, oh, what are you going to do? Evil Genie? And then he saw the Spinning Mitts, and he's like, oh my god. Yeah, so that was pretty fun. And then game 2, we first he's getting like pretty down on himself. He's falling behind. He's not getting his damage in. We're at 29 to 21. He top decked something and he's like looking like all excited, and I'm like, you didn't draw like 3 splits. There's no way you're winning the game here. And he goes for First Lie with like 3 cards in hand, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just not even gonna care about split. Go for it. And I call something that puts me in range of split so that I would hopefully win the First Lie war, and I did. So I draw the 3 cards, and he just throws his cards on the table. He's like, are you kidding me? You didn't play around split? And I'm like, no, screw you. So that's how that game went. I guess he was a little bit upset that I just kind of like called his bluff on the split. So that was fun. What?
Good on you, though.
Yeah, because I think his only way of winning there was to like win the first lie, and then like have some type of miracle happen with the cards I drew off of it. But so I was like, if I draw the cards, I think I'm fine. So last round was Sherry. This is the only Sherry that I got a win against instead of a draw. He was playing the standard Angels package with Class G's tank, and I don't think he was playing dolls. If he was playing dolls, he was playing a very small amount of them, because every single time that he went to do Sherry Judgment, he failed to find instead of actually pulling something out, which is weak, if I had to say. The MVP of that match, though, was Cleaning Doll, because I was able to eat his Class G's tank every single time he pulled it out. Unfortunately, he had to reveal at game 1, so that means I had 2 more Cleaning Dolls in game 2. So he lost his alternate infinite value engine. Myths is very good against Angels, so I wound up pulling that out with a clean 2-0, which put me at the end of the day at 5-0-2, which was second place because first place had better tiebreakers.
You're technically undefeated.
Technically undefeated. It was a pretty good day. I think I could have went 7-0 somehow if I played better in my 2 draws, but I guess everyone would say that. Top 8 was very interesting. It was against Nick Blandon, very good player, very respectful player. I'm not sure if this is like fully a misplay or not, but I'll go over how the last turn went and how I lost game 1, which is He attacks with 2 things. I wound up using my Scarlet's Agony on the Sylvia. I needed to draw. I was trying to get into a situation where I could resolve my Spinning Myths next turn into Izanagi, try and win the game there. And he goes, okay, split. I'm like, I think I'm ready for this. Unfortunately, I used my Sherry flip for the turn, so I don't have access to my last days of Powerless Dragonoid to cancel the split. So I'm like, all right, I'll go for Otherworld Dreams. And let's resolve. Split Heaven and Earth. I'm like, okay, that's 12. Split Heaven and Earth. There goes the game. I lose 2,400 life, and I'm dead. I was exactly at 24. Yeah, it's what happens, but hey. He only runs 3 splits in the main, so it was something I wasn't really going to play around, but what happens, happens. Next game, I get it early as an Izanagi out. It hits him in the face, and he's like, all right, I think we're done here. Basically, after he gets hit 2 times, and I wind up winning that game pretty decisively. Next game, he gets a really good start. He has double egg with multiple Thugas. By turn 3, he's got double Thuga and a Sylvia out. With 1 will open, I said to myself, all right, I have to go for my Spinning Myths here. I have to energize out Spinning Myths. I didn't have the Gretel in my opening hand, so I didn't have a way to turn 2, ramp up, and then get protection available for my Spinning Myths, so I had to go for it. I had to hope that his cancel in hand was Otherworld Dreams, so I could play the second Spinning Myths, but that wasn't the case. It was Wall of Wind. I was tapped out. He cancels it, deals a bunch more damage, plays Piggy. So now he has flyers involved in this situation, and basically I'm dead on board. If there is a situation where if I quickly put up all my stones, I think I was still 1 stone away from getting a judgment off anyway, so I don't think it mattered, but it was something to consider in hindsight. But I was also under the impression that I really needed last days for the split since he was drawing them so consistently. But that's how it goes. I wound up losing game 3 to him after he gets a pretty nutsy opening hand, but that's what Carrick does. They high roll. But good job to Nick Blandon getting ahead of me. I get 5th place because I was the highest in Swiss out of the 4 people that lose in top 8. So that was basically my tournament report. Nice.
Anything in the future you want to think about changing for the deck? Anything you want to experiment with in the future?
I definitely want to experiment with Faerur more. I'm not really too concerned with Wanderer right now because we're not going to have another GP for however long time. It's probably going to be until next season, unfortunately.
Probably.
Yeah, unless we have another major, someone hosts a private large event for Wanderer, maybe an ARG becomes Wanderer or something. Then we could see something, but until then, all I can hope for is some Sherry balance changes. I think Sherry's ridiculous in her current state. She's beatable if you high roll against her, and Kyric's the best at high rolling against her because of the Cthulhu train and play dead shenanigans. But otherwise, there's not much to do. You either play Sherry or you lose to Sherry. So, the big problem with Sherry is that she's good enough to beat aggro with her main board and still be strong against control matchups, which is just not fair. The standard for most card games is that if you are a control deck that has a way to create infinite value, you should be bad against aggro, but that's not the case with Sherry because she has access to Scarlet's Agony on her sideboard. The Rune Story is very strong to reflip down the Scarlet's Agony. She has draw consistency. There's a lot of tools that go into Sherry in such a way that's somewhat similar to Reflect Refrain. So that's what I'll say about her. In the meantime, I do want to try out the Faerur deck. I think that'd be fun, but Sherry needs to be balanced first.
Nice. All right, well, you heard it here first, folks. First ever USGP. Joe with the stellar...
First ever USGP. First ever Wanderer GP.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. I don't know how to speak words.
It's okay.
But again, first one we had here. Joe takes 2nd place in Swiss and 5th in total. So huge congratulations to him being the first Deepwood player to break into top cuts at GP.
Yep. We're gonna try and make Mike get into top cuts in our next set of GPs. I've always been on like the bubble, so it's not like it came out of nowhere. It's more or less I would be losing on the bubble. Like my first GP was I was playing Fox and I wound up bubbling out against one of the Dark Tree players.
One of the 5 Dark Trees in top 8.
Yeah, but what happens happens.
All right. Well, thank you all for tuning in again. This has been Mike.
Yep. Thank you so much. There's gonna be more content coming out. We've been pretty radio silent for a bit because we've all been practicing so much for the Wanderer GP. But thank you again for watching. This has been Mike and Joe from Deep Wood. Force of Will.